Hello and welcome to the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast, where we invite you to spend a few minutes with the staff at Cook Library. I'm Nate Goss, one of Cook's librarians, and I'm here with Dave Domreese, longtime bartender at Libertyville Landmark, in my opinion, the Firkin. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, this is our second episode in a feature we're calling Locally Sourced, where we have familiar faces from our own local businesses come on the podcast and just talk a little bit about a book that has special significance in their lives. So, Dave, before we jump right into your book, let's talk a little about the Firkin, huh?
Yeah,
as you know, I've been going to the Firkin for years. Great food, out of this world beer selection, really cool staff and atmosphere. It's kind of just a part of Libertyville at this point.
Yeah.
And I've always considered you being the face of the Firkin, kind of holding the bar down, you know. So how long have you actually been at the Firkin?
I've been at the Firkin since about 2001, I think.
Wow.
Is when I first pulled up over there. And they taught me the finer things about tasty beverages. And,
Yeah,
so I've been there for a long time, yeah.
All right, and so what have you been up to these days at the Firkin?
Well, these days, just trying to, pivot to different things. We've always had a phenomenal beer list. We've always, done a really nice job with that. We've always made it a kind of a beacon, if you will, for craft beer and just stuff you've never had before. I mean, that was always kind of my mindset, be like, what can I get you to try that you've never had before, never thought you'd even, want to try, and just put that in your hand, let you taste it, and then just kind of, go from there, see what you think.
So, is there anything new or, special events or anything going on that you want to talk about? Maybe even some new beers that you just got to try? Or
Yeah. We just got done with Chicago Craft Beer Week, which even though, not in Chicago, we still take part of because, there's just so many amazing local breweries out nowadays. And, there's just so much stuff out there to try. So we're always pivoting to try, to move to new things. And give everybody a chance out there. And that's, we've always been able to feature different breweries that maybe, nobody wanted to take a chance on before, whether it be, some European import or something I heard was pretty tasty, or a brand new brewery just opening up, like, say like Only Child up in Gurnee. They've been around for a while, but, they just opened up the Gurnee location, and absolutely, we want to put them on tap and get them out there because they make some tasty beverages. We do have a couple staple lines, a couple staple beers that we always have, but for the most part, I'd say 80% of our beers on tap are rotating constantly.
Yeah, I'm getting thirsty just talking about it. So, all right, let's go ahead and let's pivot to the book. Mm-hmm. So, Dave, what is the book that you want to talk about with the listeners today?
Well, that was something I was thinking about pretty hard. What did I want to, share with the listener? Like, what book kind of touched me and, made me kind of think about the bigger picture, if you will.
Sure.
And it sounds kind of ridiculous and a little bit of whimsy, but one of my all-time favorite movies growing up as a kid was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Love that movie. I don't know, it just spoke to me for whatever reason. I didn't realize it was a book at the time. I just thought it was a movie.
Yeah, the Gene Wilder 1971 classic at this point.
Classic.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy just you couldn't have played a better role. I mean, it was just meant to be.
I don't know if you knew this or not. It's actually really great coincidental timing that it came out June 30th, 1971. It's actually 45 years old, like coming up like these next week or so.
Oh, really?
So I was looking, because I was kind of trying to just look up some stuff for this interview, and they're showing it, like the original, in a couple of theaters around here.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
No, I did not know that. Thanks for the heads up,
So you were really into the book. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you were really into the movie.
Yeah, really into the movie.
That was your gateway into the book, then?
Yeah, it's just when I was growing up in Chicago, I grew up on Belmont and Clybourne, right over by Western, and there wasn't a lot going on in that area. Across the street was an industrial cleaners that took up like the whole block. Long story short, the neighborhood there was nothing there. There weren't other houses next to us. It was a cab company, my grandfather's garage, our 3-flat, and then right next to us was an auto shop. After that was another auto shop. So, we grew up not quite in a neighborhood of houses. It was a neighborhood of auto shops, if you will, So, I really didn't have any neighbors to play with, anything like that. Everybody that went to my school lived much further away.
Yeah.
So, really, books, it was the Cook County Library. There was a little satellite down the street on Clybourne, I believe, if I remember correctly. And I had just kind of been wandering, and I saw, Roald Dahl's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I'm like, wait a second.
You just saw that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I love this movie. It's a book. And then right next to it was Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. And I was like, what the hell is that? I'm like, why? Because I knew the movie was older. But I'm like, well, and I, look and when the book was written. And I'm like, well, why isn't this a movie? So I immediately devoured the book, both books. And there's so much in the book that's not in the movie. And again, this is like, first grade or something like that.
So you were like in first grade when you read this the first time?
Yeah, it was like first or second grade when I read it for the first time. So, you're really young and you're trying to figure things out. And I had no idea that, movies are based off books. Books are based off movies. And this was a book that taught you and didn't talk to you like a small child.
Yeah.
It was that whole concept again. It's like, it doesn't talk to you like a small child. Like, things happen in this book. You're like, can I read this? Am I allowed to read this? You're almost like, am I getting in trouble for this? And, that was really a gateway book to, other young adult fiction or something like that. Well, I kind of gravitated towards the spooky stuff like John Belair's,
Sure.
and, just The Clock with the House in its Walls was like one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, yeah.
But honestly, like, again, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like, realizing from movie to book, it's actually a book first, and then that blowing my mind as a small child, and then kind of moving on from there.
So not only was the movie sort of a gateway to this book, that book then sort of became a gateway to reading in general for you.
That's exactly, yeah. That's
so that really is quite a significant book then.
Oh,
yeah.
that's why I picked it, not, just because it was that book that, made me kind of say like, huh, really? And then just made me a regular at the library, like, what else can I get? What else can I get? It really led to that in me, like, trying new and different things, and that's,
Well, if you think of Roald Dahl, like, the guy's got a really timeless aspect to his writing because, you're talking about movies. That movie was made in the 70s, but then we've got the BFG, which is coming out this year, directed by Steven Spielberg. You've got James and the Giant Peach came out kind of when I was a little bit younger. It just seems like Roald Dahl wrote books that transcended generation.
Oh, it really does. It transcends. You nailed it on the head. It really does. Like, you can go back and read it, and it's just, even though there's no mention of cell phone, it still blows your mind.
Yeah.
Where he's talking, still science fiction. There's a lot of science fiction to it. The glass elevator. All these contraptions and things like that. Beings from, like, who knows where.
Sure.
With the Oompa Loompas.
Yeah.
And the Vermicious Knids supposedly from outer space now. It's just.
Sure.
It's all over the place. And I mean, it really is a morality play, when you kind of get down to it. I mean, even the characters' names, Mike TV, Veruca Salt. Growing up, doing the Catholic school, too, it also spoke.
It instilled some values into you in a kind of quirky way, sort of.
Yeah. It really brought, like, kind of that stuff.
I was actually going to ask you if you have a favorite character in the book.
Oh, that's an excellent question. I don't know. I mean, just... I don't know. I think maybe the factory is kind of like, just like one of the coolest characters in the book. That,
sure, yeah.
Like in the movie, it's just definitely in the background and stuff like that. But just a place of one Imaginarium or, whatever you want to call it. Just,
yeah.
It's just the background to it is just amazing.
Yeah. I thought that it was really interesting and fun that you, as such a craft beer connoisseur, would pick something like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory because you do have Charlie's sort of attention for quality in candy and chocolate, Yeah. And I'm kind of wondering, like, would you say that his fondness for quality candy has similarities to how you view beer and beer selection?
I could absolutely say, I mean, it really was like a kid in a candy store. When I took over the bar managing of Firkin, in the very early 2000s, there wasn't as much to pick from as there is now, but the level of beauty that was out there just in liquid form was amazing.
You felt like you had received your golden ticket, huh?
Oh, seriously. I'm not even kidding you. Like, you totally got the golden ticket where, and just the people that would come to visit because we were doing good things, having Bell's Brewing on tap for so long and Larry Bell, like, coming to visit, the Clishes from Lakefront Brewery coming down all the time to say hello and hang out. We'd get brewers from Europe, Derek Prentice from Young's Brewing Company, stopped by, and I had him signing, like, bottles like a rock star in the early 2000s. Xavier Van Hoensbroek, if you've had the Castile Rouge that we always
have,
have on
yeah.
tap. Yeah, so like he owns that, brewery, and he's in town for, a little tour or whatnot of distributors. He's like, we're going to stop by the Firkin. I had these amazing people like stop by and just say hello, and it blew my mind every time it happened. I'm like, really? You're coming from Belgium to Libertyville to sit down, say thank you for pouring my beer, and I get to sit down and have a beer with you. This is like just the most amazing thing. And I just sit there. Yeah, it was just kid in a candy store for sure.
It's almost like the Firkin has become the chocolate factory of Libertyville when it comes to beer,
It's definitely not something that like, you can just like sit back and let happen. I mean, there's just so much work that goes into it. It's just like, why is this beer going to Libertyville when it can go to, some cooler bar in Chicago or whatever?
Yeah.
And it was just like, that made me go out of my way to like make this a destination outside of that easy, like, heavily populated area. I want to make you want to take the train up to visit here.
You got to see this place, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so going back to the book real quick, if you're a listener listening to this podcast and maybe Charlie and the Chocolate Factory kind of fell through the cracks as a kid, do you still think that it'd be a good book for an adult listening to this to be like, you know what, I never read that book? Would they still get a lot out of it, you think, as an adult even?
Oh, yeah. It's just so full of whimsy and ridiculousness. And sometimes, it's just good to just go back and absorb something like that. I mean, because there's so many great authors that do kind of parallel that still, like, they play to that, childhood instinct in you, but with those, adult themes or whatever. Maybe, the books that you're reading now are very adulty, but don't tell me there's not like this little hint of like childhood whimsy, like thrown in there somewhere. Jesus, I mean, if people read Twilight, go read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's ridiculous if you're reading Twilight, not Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, know your roots, huh?
Exactly. There's some magic and stuff in there. You know?
Absolutely. All right. Well, Dave, I just want to thank you so much for coming and talking with us today, and thanks a lot for coming by.
No, thanks for having me. This is really cool, and anything to help promote the local library and get your butt in there and pick out a book.
We also just want to invite our listeners to also stop by the Firkin and grab a drink, enjoy some of the local atmosphere. It's a really fun place.
Yeah. 515 North Milwaukee Avenue. Please come and visit.
All right, so if you want to check out Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl, head over to the library's website, www.cooklib.org, to explore our catalog. Maybe even browse some of our books about beer and homebrewing while you're at it.
Please do.
We also want to remind you about Shelf Life, the library's blog. That can be found at shelflife.cooklib.org. It's where we write up book reviews and other library-related news. If you have further comments or questions, you can always shoot us an email, webmaster@cooklib.org, and keep on sharing this podcast with your friends, and maybe even leave us a nice rating on iTunes if you have a moment. We will be back soon, but until then, keep reading, keep watching, and keep listening.